Go ahead. Complex friendships and perceptions. How the setting of the movie Shawshank Redemption shows how Red and Andy's complex backstories merge to make complex friendships, which reveals their perception of each other. I kind of have this in the thesis. Oh, slide. So this says the setting of the courtyard and the library show how people who have complex stories come together to create complex friendships. This reveals their perceptions about one another. Through this presentation, I'm basically going to be taking you through Red and Andy's relationship and how they, like the moments in the movie when they're together and when they're separate, and how their backstories relate to that. And this slide. So this is a diagram that I made. It basically shows how when the two characters are apart and when they're together in the prison, and then when they're leaving the prison and when they meet back together on the beach. In this like column sort of, it shows how their backstories are portrayed when they're like individual, like they haven't met yet. And then it also shows how they're together in the jail, or in the prison, and how their relationship develops. And then how their relationship also develops when they're apart and leaving prison, and then how they come back together. Slide. Okay. So this scene is in the beginning of the movie when Andy is first coming into jail, and he kind of shows how he's contrasting from the other prisoners because he's looking out at the people like banging on the gate, and all the other prisoners are sort of looking down, so you know he's going to be the main character. And this is he's also in his like outside clothing, so you can see that he's more of like an outsider character. And Andy's backstory is portrayed outside of the prison rather than Red's backstory, where when you're first getting to know the characters, you only see Red in the prison, so that's how his backstory is developed. He also is seen as more of like a wise character because whenever he goes in front of the board, he's not really like actively trying to get out of jail, and he's not really showing like any effort. And so this scene kind of shows that, and how he's like has a loss of hope and also his backstory being portrayed in prison shows how he's more institutionalized, and how Andy's more of a hopeful, young character. Slide. This scene is in the like middle of the movie, and it shows many like, I don't know if you guys can see, but that's like Red's shoulder. It's kind of hard to see. And then that's like Andy when they're in the library inside the prison. And the movie has a good job of balancing scenes where where Red is often looking for Andy to have hope and like freedom, and he kind of makes Red a less institutionalized character, whereas Andy is looking to Red for his wiseness, and how he said that Red said that sometimes these walls will keep you safe, and like what happened to Brooks and how he got out and he killed himself because he didn't feel safe and he didn't want to live every day like in fear. So that's how Red is teaching Andy, and Andy is kind of teaching Red how to be hopeful because he's seen more as an outside character. And so, yeah, you guys can go to the next slide. So this shows in these two scenes is when they're apart, and so this scene shows Red getting outside of the jail, and it shows how he's a more like an institutionalized character because he's actually doing it like the correct way, and he's not breaking out of jail like an Andy, and you can see the guards looking at him and him looking back, reflecting on the jail. So he's more of a steady character, whereas Andy breaks out of prison, and it's like an over-the-top scene. He's like, he's sort of like looking up, saying that like he broke out, he's more hopeful, he wanted to get out of prison. And then this is when they're like traveling. So Red is on the bus and he's looking out, so he can show how he's more reflective, and Andy is kind of knows where he wants to go and is seen more of a young, hopeful character. And then they meet back again together at the beach, and this kind of shows how their backstories merge and how they see one another, and how they perceive one another, and how that relates to the main theme of the movie.
get out of here.